Today on Recover Me, you'll hear an inspirational journey of recovery taken by Amanda Campbell, who against the odds overcame a major episode of multiple sclerosis at the age of 24.
That meant to me that my life was over, that I wasn't going to be able to achieve my dreams or even just normal things like being able to put on a pair of heels and go out to dinner.
You'll also hear from the illusionist Jack Daniels on using magic in therapy, something the Nepean Hospital in Western Sydney has pioneered with support from the legendary David Copperfield through his Project Magic program.
Just like that. Now I'm hoping you want to learn how this is done. So let's take a look behind the scenes.
First, let's hear about Amanda Campbell.
Hi, I'm Dr. Ann-Maree Kurzydlo. Today on Recover Me, we will delve into one person's remarkable journey from incapacity to full recovery. I'll be speaking to Amanda Campbell, a young woman who in 2004, at just 24 years of age, was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. In 2009, she suffered a major attack that left her paralysed down one side of her body. At that time, she was given just a 50% chance of ever walking again. This devastation came unexpectedly at a time when Amanda was about to launch into an exciting new business venture. Now, before we get started, I'll explain a little about multiple sclerosis, or MS as it's commonly called. MS is a progressive neurological condition in which the immune system damages the insulating covers of nerves in the brain and spinal cord. It's a bit like stripping back the protective outer layers of a power cable. Communication between our nerves and other parts of the body gets disrupted, causing symptoms such as changes in vision, weakness, and difficulty with movement and coordination, just to name a few. The devastating thing about this condition is that it may progress with time, and though we have good treatments available, we don't as yet have a cure. Amanda's heartwarming story of resilience and tenacity will give you a glimpse into a world that Amanda herself had not yet reflected on until we started filming for this show. Hi Amanda, nice to meet you.
Lovely.
Amanda, thanks so much for being here today and sharing your extraordinary story with us. So let's start right at the very beginning. Where did life begin for Amanda Campbell?
I've always been a happy, active young girl. My twin sister and I were lucky to attend a couple of private schools, and we were very active in sport, in music, and in academics. We were very passionate about music actually from a very young age, so much so that when we finished school, we decided life was too short, and we went and studied musical theatre and dance after school. And we were never really quite sure what we wanted to do. There were lots of different ideas, but we were always passionate about music, and that led to us singing and writing our own songs for many years to come, all through our 20s. My twin sister Nicole was diagnosed with Crohn's disease actually when we were 11. So prior to that, always active, very happy, just normal girls, you know. But yeah, when Nicole was diagnosed with Crohn's disease, you know, things took a turn and life got more complicated and difficult. She missed a whole chunk of school actually, probably from year 6 till about year 10. Yeah, right. So a long time. That was a difficult time. Nicole had a really difficult case of Crohn's disease. And she was often at the Royal Children's Hospital. And I remember having to go to school by myself. We were, you know, we were always together. We were our best friends, and that was hard. That was hard being separated from her.
We've always had a very strong bond, and we both have had independent lives growing up as adults, but we've always been very connected. So we've both had both our careers going. At the time we were living together, so we were very close, very close. During Amanda's treatment, I was able to help her through her recovery based on my experience of being sick as a child. I was able to remember how earth-shattering and confusing the situation was for me. So I was able to try and give her the tools and the emotional stability to make sure that she understood she wasn't on her own, and that she had full support, and that it was only going to be temporary, and that we were going to get through this together.
But eventually she got better, and as I said, towards the end of year 12, we decided life was too short, so we went and studied dance and musical theatre, and that led to singing. I then fell into the fashion industry, a career that I really enjoyed through my 20s.
Mm-hmm.
I got to work with some amazing Australian and New Zealand designers.
So what were some of the first signs and symptoms that you had that something was going on with your health?
Yeah, it was before I was diagnosed. So
Okay.
around the age of 19, when we were studying musical theatre and dance actually, that
Right.
year after school, and I couldn't feel the left-hand side of my face, and I noticed because I was putting mascara on the left side. And I was talking to my boss, getting ready for my shift. I think I was working in the upstairs bar that night, and my boss, Beck, we were chatting, and I was drooling. I accidentally drooled on the side of my mouth because I didn't realise it was numb, couldn't feel it. So I went and had an MRI, and Dr. Lawrence Scher, a neurologist, read my results to me. So we arrived at the appointment, and I sat down in front of him, and he was reading through the report and had a look at my MRI. And I just thought I was going to be in and out of that appointment and it would be nothing. But he said, "Amanda, I'm so sorry, but you've got multiple sclerosis." It was devastating. I didn't really understand what MS was at the time, but I knew that it was debilitating. I knew that it was not good, and I knew it was long term. And he said, "Amanda, there's no guarantee that you're going to get movement again. You haven't responded to treatment. It's a waiting game now. You may never walk again. You may never wash or feed yourself again. We're just waiting for your body to respond." But multiple sclerosis, and I welled up, and I don't really like crying in front of people, so I started to get really uncomfortable. And I didn't really understand what MS was.
I was just about to say, did you?
Not
know
really. I've heard of
anything
it,
about
but I knew it wasn't good.
Yeah.
And I knew it was a chronic degenerative illness, but I didn't really understand the specifics of it, but I knew it wasn't good.
Mm-hmm.
And the first words that came out of my mouth were, "Can I have a family?"
Oh.
Yeah, I didn't even realise that was important to me.
At that age, of course.
But it just came out, and then I excused myself and ran into the next room and had a big, big cry.
Oh. It must have been such a hard time for you.
Yeah.
Because, 24, you're thinking about the future, you have absolutely no sense of your own mortality, or, you just expect time is limitless. So
It's amazing how everything can just change in one moment.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And what about your parents? I mean, how did they react, and those closest to you? Did they?
Well, Mum was with me when I
Yeah.
was diagnosed, and it was a huge shock.
Totally devastated. It took me a little while to get over the shock, but of course I couldn't show it because we all had to stay strong and positive for Amanda. But I think as a mother with 2 children with a devastating illness, devastated is all I can say. I think their strength comes from inside of themselves. I think the girls have, in many ways, they've been challenged most of their lives in one way or another. And I suppose it was really preparing them for the biggest challenge of their lives, which was the health issues. But I think the strength is in their DNA. It comes from mine and their father's side of the family. Their father was always a very determined, stubborn fellow. So am I. I mean, once you have a goal, you need to be focused. I feel very proud because I know how much she's put into it, how much work went into it. I know others helped her and have been on her learning journey with her. but the determination comes from within herself, her inner strength. I think that's one thing she's learned about herself.
And we all immediately actually went to the Botanical Gardens in Melbourne, and everyone just came. Like my father came, a couple of my friends came, my twin sister, apparently when she was told, she was at work. I can't remember who told her, maybe it was Mum, and she just dropped whatever she was holding and just came straight to me. So we were all just sitting at the Botanical Gardens, which is beautiful, overlooking lakes, but I was just staring out, just digesting it. And I think Dad felt like a failure. He just, you know how, really? I'm not sure, he's not as emotional as my mum.
Right.
And I think it would have given him a massive shock. And understandably, I think he just felt, you know, helpless. You know, what can they do?
I mean, that is the situation. A lot of people do find it hard when someone has a serious illness to what to say to them and how to support them, and it's sometimes quite confronting for people, and they can actually, you know, withdraw from you. Is that what you did? Was there anyone in particular that you were really surprised they really stood up to the plate and supported you? Or
I was really lucky. I was really supported. My family and my girlfriends were amazing. I wasn't really alone much, but there were times that I was alone, and it was important though. That was a time for me to really realise my inner strength. You know, it's as if we would light a candle in this well-lit room today. You wouldn't so much notice the light. But when everything becomes dark, that's a time when you find your light and what you're truly capable of.
Absolutely.
And that was, those dark moments were a gift for me. But I was really lucky. And also another very close family friend of ours, Dr. Michael Bay, really stood up and stepped up to the plate when I was recovering from one of my serious attacks that I had. That's how I was introduced to kinesiology. So I was working with physios and in conjunction with kinesiology. And a family friend of ours came and tuned me up every few days, and that's how the whole world of kinesiology was introduced to me, because it really helped me recover.
Of course, you can't sort of separate the mind and the body from the physicality, can you? And you need both of those to interplay to actually...
I've actually, for myself, I've always taken a balanced approach, and I find that addressing Eastern and the Western together has always given me the best results.
That's fantastic. And so, as you mentioned, in 2009 you did have that major setback with that quite a severe relapse in your condition. And, you know, walk us through that time. I mean, what exactly happened at that point?
Yeah, so 5 years later, looking back now, when I was diagnosed at age 24, what I know now is from that moment on, I started to focus all of my energy on what I didn't want and what I was scared of that might happen. And so my world became a mirror image of that, and I just got sicker and sicker and disconnecting more and more from my body. I went out later, I worked harder, and I just became really busy because I wasn't able to really digest and acknowledge how I really felt about having a chronic illness that could have me bedridden, or, you know, I could end up disabled or even dead. And so digesting that as a young girl was really difficult, and I didn't really tap into that. So anything to ignore how I really felt about it. And so around the age of 29, I was very busy. I was launching my first business on my own, and I was working a couple of jobs on the side, and, you know, I guess I had a belief, I really had a deep-seated belief that my life could be over. Right. So I was just out to enjoy my life and really experience as much as I could, because I really thought that, well, I didn't know what my future held.
Sure.
And so I wasn't looking after myself as a result.
Yeah.
So it was New Year's Eve. It was just prior to New Year's Eve, I launched a pop-up store, my own fashion store, and we were selling high-end fashion. It was always on sale. That was the business concept. And I remember, Boxing Day and Christmas, it was busy, busy, busy. And I actually felt my body starting to collapse. I could tell that I was going faster than my body.
Right.
And I didn't really understand. They were alarm bells, and I didn't listen. And so New Year's Eve came. I remember being out with my girlfriends, and in the new year, a bunch of us went up to the coast, and we're just having a good time. and the numbness came back in my hand, in my face, all down the left-hand side of my body, into my leg. And, you know, it had happened before, so I just thought to myself, it'll go away. It'll be fine. It'll be fine. It's like my mantra back then. And so it wasn't fine. It progressed to weakness, and it took a slow 10 days to become completely paralysed. So my face literally dropped. And my arm twisted, it looked like a stroke, and the left-hand side of my entire left leg literally stopped working.
So you lost all movement and feeling down that left side of the body?
It just stopped working. I stopped being able to raise my arm. I stopped being able to walk. So washing and feeding myself became the most difficult tasks of my day. I couldn't open and close my hand. And then my muscles started to slowly twist. So it was painful.
Wow.
Yeah, I didn't really understand. I was scared. So I should have gone to my neurologist immediately. But I was up at the coast having fun
Enjoying
with my
yourself,
friends
of course.
in the spa. You're not supposed to be in a hot spa when you've got MS. So I was in the spa, relaxing. No, I know better now. I didn't understand. I'd never had it.
And you were living your life to the fullest. That's what you had intended.
And my attacks were few and far between. So I had years apart. So I forgot a lot of the time that I even had multiple sclerosis.
Because that's actually the nature of MS, isn't it? It's, you know,
Relapsing
and
remitting.
Exactly.
It can be. And then there's
Exactly.
progressive MS if you're unlucky. Yeah.
So you mentioned that you also had that change in your face. So you had that facial palsy. As a person who's, you know, obviously in the fashion industry and a young woman, how did that actually affect your confidence and your, you know, your self-esteem having that happen to you?
My face was crooked, so it was hard.
Yeah.
But it was humbling.
Really?
Yeah, it taught me there's just so much more that matters. I was actually so busy learning how to walk again. To be honest, it didn't affect me as much as I thought it would. And they quickly gave me exercises to smile and to get it back. And lucky, gosh, it was such a wonderful, I had a great team. I was at Epworth Richmond Hospital, and they had their own rehabilitation centre. So I was in hospital for 3 days of steroids, but I still could not move. So they actually extended the steroids for 5 days, and I wasn't responding to therapy at all. So they decided to transfer me to rehabilitation, where I would live for 2 months. And that's when I met Gavin Williams, who is a neurophysiotherapist, and another physio that was working with him, Sean. And they both worked hard on me, and they were passionate about getting their clients not just walking but running again. I think Gavin is the guy that developed a program to have his clients not just walk but run. And so I was a part of that. So I fell into a wonderful team, and then my twin sisters, friends, and that's how I met Dr. Michael Bay, the kinesiologist, would come every few days, and he would tune my muscles up, because your muscles are connected to your brain via the nervous system, and kinesiology taps into the subconscious part of the brain, and long story short, awakens the muscles and the pathways up quicker. So all of that together, and a lot of determination on my end. So there was one special night, actually. I was out with my girlfriends. I couldn't be at girls' night. I lived in rehab for 2 months. So they came to me. And there was one Tuesday night that they put me in my wheelchair, and they wheeled me down to the pub, and we had dinner. And we laughed and we laughed and we laughed, and just we forgot about, you know, all the drama that was going on 24/7.
You didn't have MS for a moment?
No, I laughed for the first time in, you know, a long time. And I remember that night I felt something jolt in my brain, and I thought that I was just feeling happy. But I think something reconnected that night. And that's what you hope for, is there's a lesion that becomes scar tissue, and the pathways where the electrical impulses fly through for me, it was a motor skill area. Like one lesion on the right-hand side of my brain really got the whole left-hand side of my body. And something reconnected, and I came back to my room, and that night my toe moved for the first time. And from that moment on, looking back now, I know that I found hope. And I started
That was your one defining moment that really sort of gave you motivation and pulled you out of
I knew it was going to be okay. And from
fantastic.
that moment on, I started to channel my energy differently. I started to focus on what I wanted instead of what I didn't want, because I saw that it could happen. So it moved, and I was like, okay, now I know what I have to do. So all those years of always being a driven, very motivated young girl served me well. So in my younger years, I channeled it being scared, being busy, not looking after myself, and not channeling into, you know, my body. So I tuned into my body, and I was a first in at physio, last to leave, a woman on a mission, and I was there 5 days a week, all day, exercising with the physios. And I went from being in a wheelchair to having a foot brace, to having my knee being taped up, to walking on my own.
That's incredible. And I mean, rehab for something like MS is really quite arduous, and it's quite, you know, difficult at times. And you basically had to relearn, didn't you, the daily activities that most of us take for granted. It was, you know, these were just the simple things that we all do on a daily basis.
Well, your body forgets. So there was muscle memory. So I went to pick a cup up, and my arm would go like that instead of like that.
Which must have been frustrating for you.
Oh, it was amazing though, just to see how the body, I had to crawl again. I had to put pegs in holes. And then, but once I started to get movement back, and that's what the physios are amazing for, that technique of which parts of the hips to, you know, your pelvic floor first, and then trunk stability, and this is all the things I learned later on once I studied, but I had no idea what was going on. But then once I got basic mobility back, it really started to accelerate to being able to run that oval.
Isn't that amazing?
It
what an
was.
incredible experience that must have been.
Well,
for
those
you.
first few steps I had were, I'll tear
I'm
up
sure
thinking
everyone
about it.
around would be tearing up just watching you.
Yeah, I remember one of my best mates, she would visit all the time, Kaz, with my twin sister. They used to tag team, and they looked after me, particularly at nights.
Right.
And I caught her watching my first few steps. I think she had a bit of a tear as well.
Of course.
But yeah, just from the black hole moments of sitting there and the doctors saying, you may never walk again. We're waiting for something to happen.
Yeah.
You're not responding.
Was there ever a time that you actually felt like you weren't going to get to that point where you know, were kind of in the depths of despair, or, you know, felt there was a sense of hopelessness? Did you ever have that sort of a moment and sort of frighten yourself with how you felt?
There was. When I was transferred to rehabilitation, I sat in front of another doctor who explained to me, look, you're not responding to therapy, we're going to start physio, and we're just going to hope that your mobility returns, but there's no guarantee. So there was a bit of like a 50-50 chance of me ever walking again, or ever being able to dress myself, or put heels on and simply just go out for dinner. Just the simple things. So yeah, that period of time.
My name is Dr. Skibina. I'm a neurologist specialising in treatment of multiple sclerosis. When I first met Amanda 10 years ago, she was recovering from very severe relapse of multiple sclerosis. She had significant disability. She needed rehabilitation. At the time, she was referred to inpatient rehabilitation, and she embraced an idea of intensive physical activity, physiotherapy. She helped herself by positive attitude and intensive exercise regime. She made fantastic recovery, however, needed treatment. At the time when we started her treatment and started our relationship, only injectable therapies were available, and Amanda had been treated with variable treatments. Unfortunately, most therapies caused significant side effects. Fortunately, a very effective therapy, natalizumab Tazabri, became available, and after consultations with Amanda and her family, we decided to treat her with this. Since then, she has never had relapses and gradually improved dramatically. At the same time, she helped herself with her excellent attitude towards disease. She had changed her diet. She also embraced an idea of regular exercise, which helped immensely to her fatigue, her general well-being, her cognition. We now recognize it as a brain health. Therefore, overall, I think relationship between clinician and patient in this scenario can be considered as a great success. Amanda's positive attitude, as well as effective therapy, helped her to achieve a very good and sustained result.
Amanda's had a remarkable recovery since discovering my work. It's really a very structured, modified Paleolithic diet where I give guidance on how to have a maximally nutrient-dense diet designed specifically for your brain cells and your mitochondria. Amanda embraced this enthusiastically and experienced a remarkable healing. And I anticipate many people could experience similar levels of healing and recovery, whether they have progressive MS, relapsing remitting MS, optic neuritis, isolated syndrome, or other neurological problems, including early memory loss, Parkinson's, and mental health issues. We've had great success using this kind of dietary approach, which emphasizes lots of vegetables, sufficient meat, but not excessive. I also give some guidance to people who are vegetarian. And fortunately, many in Australia and here in the United States have diets that emphasize sugar and processed foods and have very few vegetables. As a result, their cells don't have adequate nutrition, the brain doesn't have adequate nutrition, and the microbiome does not have adequate nutrition. I think the food you eat is at the absolute root of the health that you have. If you eat junk food, and lots of it, experience to have junk health and lots of chronic disease.
I suppose it was a couple of weeks that I was waiting. It was a black hole time in my life, and I had thoughts of, can I live this way? I was 29 years old. Am I ever going to be able to achieve my dreams now? Oh my gosh, am I ever going to get married? Am I ever going to date again? I was single at that time.
So if anyone's sitting at home watching, hearing you, is there any message that you'd like to give them, if they're going through something similar themselves, some sort of serious illness? Is there anything you'd like to
absolutely.
say?
Setbacks are designed to make you uncomfortable, so that you move to the next thing. So, really listen to your body, because your body is connected to how you really feel. So if you've got any physical symptoms, they're a sign that you're suppressing or not dealing with something.
Right.
It really came down to three core things that got me to where I am now. So, we need to nourish our body on a cellular level to achieve results, let alone the normal biochemical processes that occur in the body. But if you want to repair and recover, you need to nourish your body with, ethically sourced, organic where possible, nutrient-dense food. And then when you eat better, you feel better. And when you feel better, you're more inclined to make better choices and to value yourself. And only when you value yourself can you design a life that inspires you. And when you design a life that inspires you, that leads you to become a very connected human. When you're a connected human being, it's easy to sit in meditation, but it's also where you can see obstacles as opportunities in your life. And my obstacle was an absolute opportunity for me to learn so much. I wouldn't change a thing.
Okay.
You see things from a higher understanding, which is important for any CEO, but for in one's personal life, to be able to rise above the turbulence, because you can make better decisions when you're more connected, but it's also the right environment your body needs to repair and recover when you're truly aligned. All my research has been on rapid recovery since, because I'm fascinated about why I recovered. So what's at play when you do look after yourself? You might eat the right food and you might even exercise, but you become sick. Or the other way around, what happens when you're not well and you're not deemed to recover, but you do? Why? So that has been so much of my research and studies, and it really came down to those three core things.
In my own clinic, even when I see patients that I have to give some sort of a life-changing diagnosis to, I notice a change in their attitudes, beliefs and behaviours before pre-diagnosis as compared to post. How would you say your philosophy on life in general has changed as a result of your diagnosis of MS?
Oh, massively.
Yeah.
When I was younger, my life was a mirror image of what I really deeply believed about myself, and kinesiology taught me this.
Right.
I didn't really understand, because on the subconscious level, it's out of your awareness. So it was out of my awareness that I didn't believe in myself, that I didn't feel good enough, and I didn't feel like I was able to, I was capable.
Right.
But what my experience taught me of recovering from that paralysis was that, yeah, I am capable.
Very capable.
And now my life is a mirror image of that, and I live an incredible life now.
So you're like the new improved Amanda Campbell.
Absolutely.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
So Amanda, question now is, what does the future hold for you?
The future, well, I have a private practice called Bend Like Bamboo, and that's going really well. But I also love to educate people about how they too can realign, find a connection, and give their body the right environment to repair from any setback, whether it's an illness or any setback in life. So my team and I are developing an online educational program. I'd like to expand Bend Like Bamboo Australia-wide and educate and train other kinesiologists to work under our banner, and just expand and share the love and knowledge.
Sounds incredible.
Thank you.
And I'm sure you'll get there.
Yeah, thank you. And just enjoying the journey rather than always being attached to the outcome.
Absolutely.
Even being here today, it's all part of it.
It's fantastic. Amanda, thanks so much for sharing your story with RecoverMe. And I'm sure there are so many people out there that will be completely inspired by your story.
Thank you so much.
And hopefully you encourage them to never give up.
I hope so.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Thank you for watching Amanda Campbell's story on RecoverMe.
And now, on to a therapy most of us have not heard of. Over to you, Jack.
Hi, I'm Jack Daniels. No, not that Jack Daniels. I'm Jack Daniels, the illusionist. I have been performing magic and illusions for over 20 years. Now, I'm sure a lot of you have seen a magic show. But right now, I'd like to introduce you to a different type of magic. Magic that is used in hospitals throughout the world, not as entertainment, but rather for therapy. I represent David Copperfield's Project Magic. Now, Project Magic is a program that we use that uses magic as a form of therapy. For people who have some sort of disability, they suffer from low self-esteem, depression, spinal cord injuries, even the elderly in nursing homes. And what it does is it gives that person a skill that most able-bodied people don't have. And as a result, it improves their dexterity, their hand-eye coordination, their memory skills, their self-esteem increases, and at the same time, it's a conditioning tool that brings the patient one step closer to their own therapeutic goal. Now, you might be thinking, how can magic be used as therapy? Well, stick around, because in a moment, not only am I going to show you, but I'm going to teach you one of the very basic effects that Project Magic uses in over 1,000 hospitals worldwide. All you will need is a rubber band. Project Magic is a program that uses magic as therapy in hospitals around the world. In the US, it's a medically certified program that motivates patients to regain their dexterity by learning sleight of hand. It is now run on a regular basis in the Nepean Hospital, Western Sydney. Project Magic boosts a person's self-esteem by giving them a skill that an able-bodied person doesn't have. Project Magic is in over 1,000 hospitals across 30 countries worldwide.
She'd had a stroke, which is very unusual for such a young person to have a stroke. And I walked into a room because I'd been having a great deal of difficulty motivating her to use her affected hand.
They couldn't get her to do any therapy in that one side of her body, but they decided to teach her the rubber band trick. And a few minutes later, they brought me in the room and showed me what happened. She was actually doing the rubber band effect on the affected hand, which was amazing. And you can actually see her making the effort, forcing herself to get this amazing reaction from all the people that watched. And we knew at that moment that this was a viable idea.
All right, so here is the effect. We have a rubber band. We're going to place the band on our first two fingers. And just by snapping our fingers, we're going to have the band jump from here to here. And that happens just like that. Now, I'm hoping you want to learn how this is done. So let's take a look behind the scenes. You take a normal rubber band, we place it on our first two fingers. Now secretly behind the scenes, we pull the band down this creates this little gap over here. Inside this gap, your fingers go in, all 4 fingers, and you have the band resting just above your fingernail line. Obviously, the audience don't see this view, they see this view. And whenever you're ready, snap your fingers, do a magical pass, open up your fingers, and the band jumps. Not so magical once you know how it's done, is it? Well, now that you've learned a piece of magic, think about this for a moment. Think about what a person with a disability would feel like, knowing that here is someone who has some sort of disability, and let's say for the last 6 months, maybe 2 to 3 years, they haven't been able to hold a spoon to feed themselves, or they haven't been able to dress themselves. And yet all of a sudden, they have been able to show you yourself being able-bodied, they've been able to show you something that you yourself cannot do. Can you imagine what that would do to that person's self-esteem and confidence? Now, in the case of this rubber band effect, there's actually much more going on than you would think. In this case, the person is learning how to open and close their hands. They're learning how to use both their hands, hand-eye coordination. They're improving their memory skills. Because all the time with magic, the magic is actually happening in their mind before it happens out here in front of you. Now, with my experience with Project Magic, we have been running this program at the Nepean Hospital in Western Sydney with some amazing results. Through my time with them at the hospital, I have experienced patients who had very difficulty opening and closing their hands, or they were very shy, they didn't have that motivation. And just by learning a very simple effect, they have been able to share that with their family, their friends, and their loved ones with some amazing results. Specific goal-oriented magic is taught to patients to help them improve their fine motor skills, dexterity, gross motor skills, coordination, problem solving, higher cognitive skills, memory, sequencing, planning, communication skills, and of course their social skills. For a person who's feeling less than somebody that is able-bodied, this is something that can make them feel better than. They can do something that you cannot do. That's an enormous gift to give to somebody with a disability. And that's very special.
Thank you, Jack, and thank you, Amanda, for giving our viewers an insight into the many ways recovery takes place. Join us next time when we have another story of recovery that inspires. You'll also hear about treatments that are available that you may not even know exist for you or for your loved ones. Until next time, this is Dr. Ann-Maree Kurzydlo wishing you good health.